and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Greetings and salutations to everyone out there. It is Wednesday. Welcome into Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. You can see them above our heads up there. We thank them for our constant support of not just this show, but everything we do on YSN. You know what Wednesdays bring on Running Point? It is Wrestling Wednesdays with Gary Altizer and Scotty Mencher. Gary, welcome back. We've had a couple of weeks off, and here we are again on Running Point with Wrestling Wednesdays.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. It was a long Christmas break, and it was a productive one for my team personally. So I'm glad to be back at it and back into the grind.
And like we always do, we like to bring someone on with us on Wrestling Wednesdays. And today we're joined by a great coach out of United, the United Girls Wrestling coach, and Tyler Lietza. Coach, thanks for coming on today and being with us and being a part of this this segment that we do every Wednesday.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is exciting for the girls wrestling here in the state of Ohio, and just appreciate you guys, reaching out and getting to talk a little bit of wrestling today.
It's a very exciting time. So the first question that I have for you is when it was announced last year that the OHSA was going to have girls wrestling be an official sanctioned sport, what were some of your reactions and some of the excitement that you had with an already blossoming program down there in United?
Yeah, so it was, a lot of buzz around girls wrestling. And once everything was announced, a lot of excitement at United. I was the junior high coach for 2 seasons. And on that junior high team, I had 4 or 5 different girls. And so a couple of them came up to the high school. I had a couple of them again last year as 8th graders. And so the first thing once that everything got announced was, what do we kind of have to do to maybe see if we can't get a girls team at United? And, kind of went through some steps and we were able to do that.
Tyler, what do you think it is? Why has it taken off so much at United? Especially like they're kind of like the model in the area for a girls team. They have a lot of participants and they've done well. You said you had 5 girls on your junior high team. That absolutely helps for the high school. But why do you think the girls in that district especially got so interested in a sport that they did not probably even hear about until Kenny, got there, put everything together?
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I have one of them that's on my team this year that is a freshman. And she started actually in the youth program. So she just kind of got into it at a young age and just wrestled with the boys a whole ways up through. So I think a lot of it has to do at United, just talking to friends, trying to get them to come out to do something that she was already doing. And then another one I would say is like a sibling thing as well. So I just think that kind of got the buzz going. And a lot of people like to enjoy things whenever success comes. Mm-hmm. And the girls that we have right now had success even back when they were just wrestling boys. And I think that kind of contributed to a lot of that, to getting them out on the team.
Lots of success for your roster. I want to give you a chance to let us meet the team and go over the roster that you do have and the girls that you have wrestling for you, and give them all a shout out and what you think each of them kind of bring to your program.
Yeah, absolutely. We start off 100 pounds. We have a freshman, Taylor Ballant. She wrestled with me. This will be her 3rd year. So she started in 7th grade. She's a 2-time placer at junior high OAC states. Coming in this year, freshman. I think her record right now, she's sitting at about 18-6 on the season. A couple big wins, and we look like she's planning on doing quite a few things for us towards the postseason. Then we go to another freshman, Paige Irie. She's wrestling 115 for us right now. Again, she started wrestling with us last year as an 8th grader. So first year last year as an 8th grader, right out of the gate, she picked up on things quick. She's very athletic. Second in the state last year at OAC states. So again, we're a very young team. As you hear me going through this, you're going to hear a lot of freshmen. But moving on after that, we have another freshman, Austin Brown, who is currently wrestling 125 for us. She is a 2-time OAC state placer. 7th grade, she was a champion. And then as an 8th grader, she was a runner-up. So far this year, she has a record of 20-1. Quite a few different tournaments, obviously, with only the 1 loss, taking the champ status there. Her only loss so far was actually just last weekend to the number 1 ranked girl in the state at her weight class. So looking for big things there as well. Following that up is Maggie Cope, another freshman. So right off the bat there, I name 4 or 5 freshmen. Again, she's a OAC junior high state placer, freshman this year. I think she only has 5 or 6 losses on the season. I think she's like 15-6 this year. Again, everybody's going to contribute at the end of the season, and we're looking forward to big things. After Maggie, we have Lucy Stout, who is a returning high school state qualifier from last year. So she's a little bit of one of our leaders on the team. She picks up the slack when the team's, in practice, making sure everyone's doing what they need to. So far, she's going to be wrestling for us at 145 pounds. Freshman again at 155 pounds is Danny Shastine. She's also junior high OAC state placer, freshman this year, at a pretty tough weight class. And, she's coming along, she's developing, she's learning. And, we expect her to be right in the mix at the end of the season. Hadley Brereton is wrestling 170 pounds for us. She placed at districts last year. Coming back, she has big goals for this season. So again, everybody in the lineup right now that I've mentioned, I don't think we have anyone with double-digit losses on our team at this point. And then again, bumping up the round off the lineup is Dakota McCracken at 235 pounds. And, right now she is ranked 3rd in the state, has a couple losses to the number 1 and the number 2 ranked girl in the state. And, right now that's kind of running through the lineup for you guys.
So, what do you think about the difference? If you're looking at girls wrestling compared to the boys, obviously the girls can wrestle in boys tournaments if they choose to, but I would imagine as more schools get just girls teams alone, what are the differences that you see at the tournaments and the duels and the wrestling itself? Like if you watch women's basketball, it's a different kind of game than it is in men's. Do you see differences in the girls compared to the boys, just in general?
Absolutely. I would say probably the biggest thing biggest difference, I would say, from being at the high school tournaments and then going to these girls tournaments is definitely the camaraderie and sportsmanship. The girls are most of the girls, you get a few who aren't okay with it, but you see a lot of times, a girl might get pinned in the first period, thrown to her back, match is over in 30 seconds, hopping up, hugging, smiling, things like that. So definitely a little bit different. You don't see that. That would be a little strange. I have never seen that at any of boys tournaments that I've been involved with. But I would definitely say that's the biggest difference there is just that sportsmanship and the hugging and laughing afterwards.
Coach, I just had one for you. I just wanted to know for you, because everybody talks about, the success and the winning, and you obviously have a lot of talented girls and girls that seem like they're going to accomplish some great things. But when they do go down to a defeat, when they lose a match, in your mind, what's the most valuable thing you could take from a loss? Because I think that's important. Losses in sports, they aren't always all bad. So what positive spin can you take from a defeat and kind of instill into them a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question there. And I honestly, I think one of the biggest things is kind of how you're going to carry yourself after a defeat. Are you going to be a sore loser? Are you going to, storm off and pout and act disrespectful? And that's one of the things that I try to, instill in my girls is, be respectful, finish the match. You know what I mean? We're all there for the same reasons. We all want to win every single time. But the way that they're going to carry themselves, and then obviously, hey, let's sit down, maybe take a second, evaluate what happened, and learn from what happened in that match. So I would definitely say those are the two biggest things. Carrying yourself the right way after a loss, and then moving forward with some sort of learning moment, or how are we going to better ourselves from that loss.
Coach, how much does United administration and the community support that you guys get really formulate into that answer you had earlier about why United has really run away with this girls program and why it has been so successful? How much do you see the community support and the administration support at the school really impact that?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a massive part. I mean, obviously with the administration, I mean, we wouldn't have the girls team if it wasn't for them, and just the community and everything. Everything's been nothing but positive coming out. We actually last week or the week before, we actually had our first girls dual meet. We had Salem and Minerva come in. So it was our first girls dual meet. It was great to see, the fans there and the support and everything like that. So yeah, it's been nothing but great. And obviously that we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the fans and the administration.
If you could give another school that wants, say there's another school district out there that says, hey, we want to start girls wrestling from scratch, how would you, what couple main points of advice would you give them to kind of get the numbers up and the interest going in the hallways?
Honestly, I would say probably the biggest thing is, finding the girls that play other sports. It's just like anything else. I know with boys, they talk about it a lot, football and wrestling, but just the multiple sports. I think if you're going to find girls that are, like to, they're athletic, they like to be involved in competition. I think once you get them out on the mat then, and they already have that kind of trait in them, it's a no-brainer at that point that I think they're going to fall in love with the sport.
What about in the same context, advice to girls that want to get involved now, and now the wrestling becomes more of an avenue for them, and they can kind of see it as more of an opportunity for them to get involved? What kind of advice would you give maybe a seventh grader or a sixth grader that wants to start wrestling on some of the things that they can do to really make themselves as good as possible before they get to you as a freshman?
Get on the mat as early and as often as you can. Gary, this too, from, this doesn't change from being a girl wrestler or a boy wrestler. The fundamentals is where it's at. So, if it's day one or, you've been wrestling for 5 years, you're going to see those same type of moves, bringing success. So I would just say, definitely don't be afraid to get on the mat. Don't feel embarrassed. I would get out there and just enjoy it, and as early and as often as possible.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It was great to hear from you. We wish you the best of luck the rest of the way, and we look forward to talking again real soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Tyler Leitzer, the head coach of the United Girls Wrestling Squad, joining us today on Wrestling Wednesdays. And Gary, we've talked about it, I think, ever since, last year when we found out that girls wrestling was going to be an OHSA sanctioned sport, what that meant for the development of girls in wrestling. And that's just another great example of it, what United is doing down there.
Oh yeah, they're doing a great job, and like I've talked about in the past, girls getting into the sport has really helped the sport to grow. A lot of high school sports are seeing a dip in numbers. Wrestling has always been one of those sports where once when the economy goes down, less kids wrestle, or when other new things come out, technology, jobs, other sports like bowling. Wrestling has taken a hit, but with the girls' numbers increasing. It's been able to stay pretty flat the last couple of years and even increase its numbers, I think, a year or two ago. So it's nice to see that it's coming around here locally. And like he said, Minerva girls team a couple of years ago was really tough. I'm sure they still are. Salem, they've got a good thing going there. So it's nice to hear that locally, here in Columbiana County and reaching a little bit outwards, that it's just continuing to grow, and hopefully it stays the course.
So like we've said, we've been gone for 3 weeks. We have a lot of wrestling to kind of catch up on. I'm not going to sit here and ask you to recap 3 weeks of wrestling. That would be ridiculous. We'd be here for a while if we did that. But I do want to ask you, where do we stand right now in the middle of January? What teams have really, made some strides? And as we sit here, what do you think is the state of wrestling in our area? And who do you think are still some of the best teams that are standing right now?
As far as teams that have been making strides, I think the Jackson Milton team is doing a really great job with that program. Coach Wienthal, he just had his home tournament this past weekend. We went there for the first time in a long time. He's a great host. The tournament was run smooth. And I was looking at his roster earlier. He has 7 starters that are underclassmen that will be back and only 2 seniors. They were runners-up at their tournament this weekend. I think that's a really up-and-coming team. That people should really keep their eyes on. As far as who is good in the area, I mean, South Range is still there. I think that I saw that they're predicted to finish 5th at the state tournament this year, the individual tournament. They've got several state-ranked guys. I know the Starkey kid was last week, I believe, ranked number 1 at his weight class at 157. So, I mean, they're still rolling along. Boardman just went 3-2 this past weekend. They had dual meet tournament, or they wrestled 5 matches that day. Austintown Fitch ended up finishing 5th in the tournament that they were at. So it's really the same teams that we've been used to the last few years have been good. I know Beaver Local won their Hopple tournament that they had right before Christmas. They're young. They're really young this year. It's probably the youngest Beavers team that I've seen since I've been coaching. But they fill a full squad, and even though the kids are young, they're still experienced. So they're doing well. And I think another team to keep an eye on for the next couple of years would be East Liverpool. Their junior high just won their league. I know that their numbers are up, and they got a lot of dedicated, lifelong East Liverpool guys there, really putting in the work to try to bring that program back to where it once was. So they're doing a good job there. Those are the names and the teams that really stand out to me off the top of my head.
It's a good job, Gary, making both sides of that rivalry happy with the East Liverpool and Beaver Local, mentioning them both in the same breath. We do have a new slate of Big Dogs of the Valley nominees just popped out of the oven this morning, and we always love to go over the wrestling ones with you because you can speak on them really intelligently. You know a lot of these wrestlers well. You've seen them all wrestle, probably in your own tournaments. First on the list is Jensen Baker out of United. On the boys' side, I know you've had to deal with him in the EOAC. What makes him so special?
I'll tell you what. The first thing that jumps out at me about that kid is his hips. Anybody that knows wrestling, has coached or watched wrestling, if you have good hips, you can be a successful wrestler with no experience or little experience. And I don't think that he wrestled his whole life or anything. I don't know if he started in 8th grade or what. But he's got some of the best natural hips that I've ever seen. And I've never seen the kid win more matches than he probably shouldn't have, because he has great hips and put himself in a good spot. And when he's on his back, that means nothing. I've seen him turn guys who had him on his back. He's losing big time. And he would just have some kind of center of balance to get back to flip his guy on their back and win matches. So he's definitely a big part of that United program. And I don't know if he's got his 100th win or if he just did. He's going to probably be close to breaking the record or setting the record for wins there at United.
Hips don't lie in wrestling, Scotty.
The hips don't lie.
All right. Next on the list, Gary, is a guy we already mentioned. He got his 100th pin last night. Jake Starkey from South Range.
Yeah, I've watched Starkey, his whole high school career. From the time he came on the mat as a freshman, he was a power to deal with there. Like I said, he was ranked first in the state last week. I think he's third now. But he just got his 100th pin of his career, which is really tough to do. And he did that starting at a heavier weight as a freshman. I don't know if he was like 150, something like that. He's kind of stayed around the same weight. But to do that, that's a tough weight class to wrestle as a freshman. And so you've got to average 25 pins a year to do it through 4 years. Well, we just started this year. There's only been a couple tournaments, and I'm not sure that he even wrestled all of them yet. So he's getting, most of his wins his entire career have to be pins at this point. So I'll be excited to see how he does this season in the state tournament.
I'm sure going far in tournaments helps him gets more matches that he can go up against, and gives you more reps. So he's definitely one of the best wrestlers in the area. I think he's projected to be a state champion in the individual tournaments because he's ranked number 1 right now.
Well, yeah, he was. I think he was 1 last week. He's 3rd this week. Those top 3 guys in every weight class you can shuffle around.
Right.
But yeah, he's going to be one we definitely all should keep our eyes on.
Next out of Salem is Aiden Stecker.
Yeah, we were, like I said, we were at that Jackson Milton tournament. Salem won the tournament there, and this Stecker kid was definitely a big part of that. He's at 150. They've got from 126 on through those middle weights, 132, 138, all the way up. Those middle weights for Salem are pretty tough. They've got a nice thing going there, and he showed he was the best guy in that weight class. He was pretty convincingly the champion there.
Next on the list, Jackson Milton. We talked about them and what they're doing in their program. Jaden Scott from the Blue Jays gets on the nominee list this week.
Yeah, another one of those underclassmen I was talking about with Jackson Milton. That Jackson Milton program looks like they got some real good lightweights here coming up, and he's another one of them. He's winning tournaments now. He's got a state qualifier, a weight class or 2 above him, and Owen McDevitt. So I'm sure that this is a kid that we're going to have to really keep our eyes open for here in these light weight classes, especially at 113. That's a good weight class to be as a sophomore. So seeing him make a run at the state to get to the state tournament will be fun to see.
Next on the list, Dominic Pagan from Poland. So we had a couple of small schools, but now we go into the bigger divisions in Poland.
Yeah, I see. We saw him this weekend. He's a big, strong kid, and he pretty much dominated that 175-pound weight class. He's a big, muscular kid, and he was flowing pretty good this weekend. Poland's got a couple of nice wrestlers on that team, and he's one that definitely stood out in my mind.
And last but not least, we know how good of a wrestling program West Branch always is. So no surprise that they put someone on the list this week. It is Gavin Hang out of West Branch.
Yeah, I was looking some stuff up on him. He's a freshman that wrestles 215. He just recently got runner-up at the tournament that they were at. And as we all know, I've talked about this in the past, that West Branch is known for their heavier weights. It sounds like they're picking up right where they left off of that 215 weight class this year. To be a freshman, to be getting into the finals at that weight class really says something, because most of the guys you're wrestling are juniors and seniors. Most of them are, they're older, they're more physically developed, to be doing that now. That kid's definitely got a bright future coming, and he's in the exact right school for that, for that weight class.
Gary, you said before, with Jackson Milton, the youth being at 113 class is a good place to be when you're a sophomore or freshman. How hard is it to be up in the 215s when you're a freshman?
Yeah, it's really hard. Like I said, you're dealing, if you're a freshman, you're 14, maybe 15. You're wrestling mostly juniors and seniors. You're talking 17, 18, sometimes 19 years old. That's a big difference. I mean, you're talking some of these kids could be 4 years older than you, at the far end. So to deal, I mean, we have all been there growing up. I wasn't the same kid I was at 14 that I was at 18 or 19. So to be doing it as a freshman shows that he's probably really good on the mat. He probably is just a very good technical wrestler. Even I'm sure he's strong, but I'm sure that as he gets older, he's going to get stronger. So if he's developing his skills on the mat with his technique, by the time that he gets to be a junior and senior, he's probably going to be an animal.
Gary, I just wanted to know, I've been thinking about this for a few minutes now, and I just wanted to know your thoughts. What's the one thing, other than, maybe just pure skill, talent, or God-given ability, what do you think is if there's one thing, maybe there's a couple things, but what do you think is the biggest something that a wrestler needs to do, one of these boys, whoever it may be, has to do to go from just being an adequate wrestler or a good wrestler to taking that next step and being great?
Well, you've got to put the time in. There's nothing. There's no replacement for mat time, and everybody that coaches the sport knows that that's really a huge factor. That if you don't have the experience on the mat, you're just not going to know how to deal with certain situations. You get put in so many different situations in wrestling. You're going from on your feet to on the mat, to the down position, the top position, to on your back, to putting someone on their back, to 3 periods, overtime. There's so many different facets of the game of the sport that you have to really just put in mat time to be put in those situations. So you've got to put in the time. But really, one thing that really separates the great from the good is just how bad you want it. It's so cliche to say, but in a sport like wrestling, where you're dealing with making weight, you're dealing with something that's 100% contact and all physical. You're dealing with, doing your homework, getting up at 6 a.m. to get on the bus to head to the tournament. How bad do you want it? Most of the time, and I would say probably 70% of the time, the kid that wants to win more wins. Sometimes you'll, just be outmanned. You won't physically be able to do anything about it, no matter how bad you want it if you're wrestling somebody. But I can't tell you how many times I see kids win matches 100% because they just wanted to win more than the other person, regardless of the experience. But the mat time, really, if you want to take the next step, if you want to be a great wrestler, if you want to be at the state tournament, wrestling college, you've got to put the time in, and it's a grind. And that's really what separates the good from the great.
Gary, it's been a great week. Welcome back to Wrestling Wednesdays. Thanks for coming on like we do every week. We'll see you again next week for episode 5. Always great having you, bud.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary.
Gary Altizer coming in with us on Wrestling Wednesdays. That was already our 4th Wrestling Wednesday of the season. And it's going to be fun once we get, pretty soon. It's not too far off from getting into that tournament time, and we see some of our wrestlers try to fight for a state championship.
Oh, man, such exciting times. DJ's got his Yokamania shirt
Yokamania.
on.
We're going to see that at 3 o'clock with the Power Hour. It's Yokamania.
I'm going to be just thinking about it, getting down on it. It makes me want to get on a mat, Anthony.
You want to wrestle?
Yeah.
Right now, let's go. You versus me.
I think
mono and mono.
I think we should.
No one wants to see that. It's just not.
That would be
I don't think that would be great content.
No, it wouldn't.
Maybe a joust would be better content, though.
Yeah.
I want to get one of those long lances and right at each other as fast as we can.
You're saying it kind of jokingly, but I always wanted, and that was it has been a dream of mine. Like, I don't even know if there's wheelchair jousting, but it's something I've always wanted.
I've never heard of wheelchair jousting. I've heard of wheelchair rugby.
Yeah.
And that gets violent. But I've never heard of wheelchair jousting.
Well, and I'm sure you could get to that level too, because you push your chair all the time. You don't have you're not lazy like I am. So But those dudes are
God.
dudes are jacked,
Oh.
man. Their arms.
I've played one game of wheelchair basketball in my life, and after it was over, I was like, my God, how do you
Were
do
you
this?
exhausted?
Like the Skylar Skarmecki, who's a student at Champion, plays in a wheelchair basketball league. And I don't know, she plays like 3 games in a day, and I'm sitting there like I did one game and I was done. I was like, I can't push anymore. Plus, you have to push and you have to hurl the basketball up there. It's like I was gassed. And by the way, those inverted wheelchairs are a little bit harder to push.
I mean,
so
I have a hard time getting the ball to the hoop, and it's just I just gotta pop a shot.
I know you got practice
for
now.
Christmas, yeah. I have a hard time getting the ball to the hoop, but I did. My high score is 12, which isn't terrible.
I think that's what we have to do a 1v1.
12.
That's what we have to do a 1v1 with. Forget about jousting. We just have to get together on a pop and shot and see which one of us is better.
Okay, cool. I don't know. You might have because I feel like you'd be able to use both hands, your left hand too. So see, I can only go righty.
Well, if you want me, I can just do the one-handed. Yeah,
okay.
We can even it up.
All right, we'll do that.
Whatever you want, Scotty. Whatever you think will make it a fair fight.
Can't wait, Anthony.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Bart Scott. Can't wait.
Scott,
can't wait. Oh, man. We will be right back. We're going to take our first commercial break. When we come back, Scotty's had a lot on his mind with local sports, and he's had 3 weeks to brew it. So it's going to be a fun one. We'll be right back on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees. Made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown, live in the athletic studio. Me, myself, and Scotty Mincher. Scotty, you've had 3 weeks to have stuff on your mind, and you haven't been able to get it off your chest in 3 weeks. So what do you got for us today, bud?
Yeah, well, I guess to start, I mean, we were kind of joking around, kidding, talking about getting on the mat, and we were talking about wheelchair, basketball and, jousting and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, because I haven't seen you in a while, Anthony, since the holiday season and everything. But I just wanted to know, for you, it's always people every year they have their New Year's resolutions. But I wanted to know, for you, if you do have, is there like one goal in mind you have for this season. And when I say that, it could be, with one of your stories. It could be as an announcer. It could be with a certain season coming up. I mean, you're the softball guru.
Oh.
So
1 month. 1 month, Scotty.
What's your one sports related goal?
I'm sure you saw that we had over 8 million views for the year on YSN in 2022.
I did. I love it. That's incredible, man.
As someone that puts a lot on our site and puts a lot of effort into our site, my goal for 2023 is to one up that. Let's go to 10 million for 2023. It's just the goal. Me and DJ earlier, we went over what we have to average per week, and we know that number, and we're aiming for that every week. And that's the goal. Let's get to 10 million views for 2023. It's that simple.
10 million views. I
feel like when I say that, I should do the 10 million.
It just makes me think of, I don't know if you ever watched Ren and Stimpy as a kid.
Whenever I watch that, I think to myself, how did Nickelodeon get away with putting that on the air? That's the most thing that comes to my head. It was like, dude, oh my gosh.
It's crazy because I'll watch like old episodes.
Some of the jokes they make, I was like, whoa.
I'll watch old episodes and it'll have the rating and it'll say TVG.
Y7. Or G or whatever. It's like, oh my. I don't know.
But the one episode, Ren was like $47 million. And then he's like, I am the cat. Because it was meant for Stimpy.
Right.
But Ren's like, oh no.
Oh no.
47 million.
So, that's one of our goals. We're going to strive to try to get 10 million views in 2023, even more. I mean, hey, that's the bar. We go up the bar, Scotty. You know what we do on YSN. Like we exceed the ceiling. But that's one of our goals. I always try to be a better announcer. I listen to my games after I'm done every night, so I always try to better myself there. There's always ways to improve. You never get good with how good you're at right now. So that's just my new year. I mean, it's a boring resolution, but I don't buy into the whole like, oh, this year I'm gonna do this, because those never last.
Yeah.
This year I'm gonna get into the gym more. No, you're not. You're gonna get into the gym more for about 2 weeks, and then something's gonna come up, and you're gonna stop doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said sports related,
right.
Because the other ones, they don't last.
Hopefully I can celebrate a Super Bowl. I mean, hopefully we can wash out that disappointing taste of last year's AFC Championship game. Hopefully.
Man.
Because that sucked.
To be a Chiefs fan, I just want to get in the playoffs again.
I know. Wait, we had our years, Scotty. You go through cycles,
Yeah.
I remember 2012. We had Tyler Thigpen as our quarterback.
Is that when they had?
It was rough. Todd Haley was their head coach. It was rough times.
Is that when they had was Jamal Charles your running back? Though?
Yeah, and he was like 85% of our offense.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't know if he was on the roster.
You know that Jamal Charles still holds for yards per carry, he has more than anybody in a career. With there's a limit to how many how many carries. But I think he ended his career with 5.5 yards per.
Wow, that's crazy.
And there was that season where I think he was every broadcast, it was Jamal Charles was 85% of our offense. I was like, that's not good. But hey,
I think that might be even more than Nick Chubb, which he's had.
He's close. He got, he's 5.1, 5.2.
Yeah.
Every time they put that graphic up with Nick Chubb, you see Jamal Charles on it. So.
Yeah.
He was good.
That's wild. So you had a good all of the. I know your jackets, your yellow jackets.
Stop talking about it.
But that gear, though, I love that yellow jacket gold, man.
Thank you. I like it too.
It pops on you. Man.
New Adidas, we're in Adidas school now.
Yeah.
So I got some. I still have most of my stuff is still the old Rydell. Ooh. Rydell gear. So I'm starting to get more and more Adidas stuff since we became a 3-stripe school.
Yeah, it looks good, man. I must say.
Russell, not Rhino, but Russell.
But also we had another 1,000-point scorer last night.
Mr. Donovan Pawlowski
Yeah.
from Brookfield. And it seems like every time we get a 1,000-point scorer, it's one of those names that has been popping up for seems like forever, because he does it a lot in football and he is always popping up in basketball. So it was great to get 1,000 points. 28 points last night in Brookfield's win over Champion. 81 points. I believe that was the highest total we had all night for the basketball. We had a couple of offenses really go off, but I believe Brookfield's 81 was the highest number we had last night.
I was catching up on. I've been reading, especially being off and not having programming. I've been really checking out the content religiously, and it's
religiously.
It's crazy that they also and you could correct me if I'm wrong on this name, but I believe it was Matteo Fortuna had that insane triple-double.
I mean, look at that stat line too. 19 points, 19 rebounds, 12 assists. That's an impressive triple-double. That's 2 straight nights we had a double-double on the network, because Monday night we had Ashley Schroeds from Southern pull off a triple-double as well. 32 points, 10 rebounds, 10 steals. So that doesn't happen too often when you get 2 in 2 nights.
Those are like Luka Doncic,
like
LeBron James.
And that doesn't even touch. What's crazy is that doesn't even touch Ashley Schroed's career high, because she scored 55 in a game before. So it doesn't even touch her career high point total. But 32, 10, and 10, that's a pretty good stat line.
Yeah, not too shabby.
We also had Scotty and 100 career wins last night with Matt Olson from Lowville. Got his 100th career win, head coach of the boys basketball team. They were able to bounce back after their heartbreaking loss to South Range over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you just had to.
Let's give him a shout out.
Yeah, that's true. But at the end there, it's a little twist.
We don't give jabs. No,
I know.
It was this reality, Scotty. It's what happened. You can't change what happened. It happened, and
I was just kidding around. I know you.
Maybe it was a little bit of a, my alum beat your alum. Just a little.
Yeah, just a little take.
A little twist, a little.
But the Rockets, not only are they the Rockets powerful, fueled, but they're also resilient as well.
Resilient as ever, and that MVAC is all that matters. I mean, really, that South Range game was a win-win for Lowville, because they win the game, they beat an upper division team, and then they beat a team that plays a lot of big schools, and that would have been a big marquee win for them. But if they lose, it's like, hey, it's not a conference game. It has no bearing on our positioning in the tournament at all. Everyone gets in. Who really care? I mean, does it suck that you lost? Do they think that maybe they played not their best game? Probably not. But at the same time, it's like with a sport like basketball, who cares? Like, you especially when it's out of league and it's an upper division team. Like, if that makes you better for the tournament, if that teaches you some lessons before tournament play, and that maybe that loss gets you a tournament win, they would trade that any day of the week, a loss for a tournament win, right? So I'm sure that'll make Lowville a little bit, maybe something that South Range did prepare them for, something that one of their tournament opponents does in the bracket. Who knows?
Oh, definitely. And these seasons are long. I mean, you could start out and you could really be struggling, and then you could be clicking on all cylinders.
You look at, like, for example, Fitch girls basketball. They were in a bad spot. They lost like 6 in a row. We were thinking, this team's in they're derailing a little bit. All of a sudden, Monday night they beat Howland, who is a really good basketball team. They beat the pants off of them. So Fitch is starting to put it together. If you put things together in the month of January and February in the sport of basketball, who cares if you have 4, 5, 6 losses? Everyone gets in the tournament anyway. If you're playing your best basketball when you get into February, I don't think most coaches really care that much if they have a couple of losses on their schedule.
Yeah, it's
a different animal because we especially when we're talking about the boys' side, we spend so much time with football, and football, you got the wins count. You're looking for playoff points. Basketball is just not that way.
No, it's like I don't want to say
not even for seeding because like the coaches vote, so it's like even seeding in tournaments isn't really necessarily based on your win-loss record.
Yeah, it's it's really like I wouldn't use the word like rebuild or retool, but I will say a lot of building I think goes on from the beginning of the season
absolutely
to the end of it. It's really just like I don't want to say the regular season is meaningless.
It's not meaningless, no.
But you could just go out there and you could definitely experiment a lot more than you could in, say, football, where
right.
There's all the other variables, and you have to have a certain amount of wins to get in.
Especially back in when it was 8 teams, and you had 3 losses in football, you were going to be in trouble to make the playoffs. Nowadays, with 16 teams making it, you could probably get in with 4 or 5 losses, but do you really want to get in as a 15 seed and have to play the 2 seed in the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah.
You really want to make sure your win-loss record is as good as possible to get as good seeding as possible. So I hear rumblings that basketball, everyone's still going to get in, but they're going to do away with their coach voting. There's rumors that they might try to do that, and they might try to use RPI computer rank system to just put the teams where they are based on that kind of thing, which I think would be interesting. No more coach voting, no more trying to put the burden on the coaches to figure out how good a Boardman is with their win-loss compared to maybe a Glen Oak or whatever it may be, trying to compare schedules. The coaches have enough to do without having to dive into team schedules and compare one win to one loss and where teams should fall in the bracket. So maybe in the future we see computer rankings, spill into basketball a little bit, but I don't think it'll ever be a tournament that not everyone gets in. But I think that could be interesting to see where like the seedings be a arbitrary formula and not a coach voted system.
Yeah, it would be really interesting, and it's crazy how not just on the high school level, but in all on all levels of sports, girls and boys, it's crazy how so many things have changed over just these last few years. So I mean, we could see quite a few new interesting wrinkles on the horizon. I do think this is the best time. I mean, people say this all the time, but I really think it's true. Like if you're a sports fan, if you're passionate, I think that 2023 it's really the best time. Like I don't remember sports even in high school. I don't remember it being at as good a level as it is right now. Maybe I'm biased because I'm older. I don't remember as much from when I was a kid. It's getting harder to remember being 34. But man, this is just I can't get enough of it, and I'm so glad we have sports because I've always one of my pet peeves, Anthony. I told DJ this last week, but when people say it's just a game and stuff like that, and it's are there more important things? Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, we learned that the hard way this week. I mean, it's crazy how quick sports can take a back seat to life a little bit with all the stuff that happened with DeMar Hamlin. It was almost like I've never seen a sports center where they never talked about sports.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Yeah,
but yeah, I get what you're saying. Like people are passionate about sports, and that's not a bad thing. And to say, oh, it's just a game is like, well, everyone's passionate about something, so it's just a game. Well, turn around and say, well, it's just a reality show, or it's just whatever that person's saying that is passionate. It's just Thor. It's just Marvel. Whatever you're passionate, it's just that. Like, your passion is always going to be just something to someone else. That's one of the things about the world we live in.
Yeah, that's
because not everyone's passionate about the same stuff. But there's nothing wrong with being passionate about the thing.
And I'm sure it's you can relate.
That's why I mean,
at least on some level, as far as like sports being that we talk about vices. I know one of your big vices is right next to you, that Mountain Dew.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
But also,
I can stop whenever I want to, Scotty.
I don't think so. But
you eyeing my pop?
Like, sports is just one of those things where it's like, man, I'm not saying like I wouldn't be able to get through life, but it's like also life without sports, man.
Struggled.
We learned.
Remember COVID? We struggled.
Yeah,
we were on the struggle bus.
It was a big time struggle. Yeah.
That's.
But I know we only have a few minutes left here, Anthony.
Yeah, we got about 6-7 minutes.
I wanted to talk about a little bit about. I was reading about West Branch too.
Yeah,
and they got a big bounce back win against Salem, so that was good to see, especially after you. I mean, for them, after you have a couple tough losses in a row.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the standings right now, and obviously, West Branch plays in a very tough EBC. I mean, the boys' side, Alliance, Carrollton, and Marlington are all very good basketball teams. So the West Branch's non-conference schedule also really tough, but they're still 5-6, 2-3. West Branch is one of those teams that we talked about with everybody getting in. They might take their lumps here and there, but they're going to learn a lot about themselves, and they're going to be ready to go in tournament time. And they're one of those teams that lost a lot from last year. I believe in Coach Brown. I think he's a great basketball coach, and they have the second half of the EBC to try to see if they can beat one of the top tier teams. I'm actually looking at the standings. I'm surprised at Marlington's overall record. 5-6 right now, sitting right there with West Branch. Just one less game for the Dukes right now, 2-2 in the standings in the conference. So that's why Marlington is technically ahead of them right now. But I thought Marlington coming into the season, I thought they would be a girls, boys, both of them near the top of the EBC. But right now, Alliance on the boys' side is running the show with an undefeated record in the conference.
I'm sure you still believe in Marlington, though.
Yeah, just like West Branch, they're going to be a very hard team to beat come tournament time. And then you look at the girls' side. I had a chance to call the Marlington game at the South Range, Holiday Apes Classic. Oh, they're good. They are good. Elizabeth Mason averaging, I think 19 a game, but she scored 32 in their game against Howland. And then we also saw in that same tournament, we saw Warner get her 100th career assist on 1,000 career assist. I'm sorry, 1,000 career assist. So Marlington's a good team. So I'm excited for that second matchup between Salem and Marlington because that's just one of those teams that has had the Quakers number for a minute is Marlington. So we'll see if they can get that monkey off their back the next time they meet.
Do you like? Are you more partial? Are you more partial to like a grinded out, like a little sloppy but great defense? That type of game, or do you just like to see teams lighten it up?
I think you've asked me that question about baseball and softball, and I've said the same thing. Like, if it's a clean game,
You'll
if it's
take any game.
if it's low scoring because the defense is good, not because the offense is turning the ball over, I'm all for it. If it's high scoring because the offenses are just making good plays and it's not because the defenses are just kind of lazy, I'm for that too. I just want clean basketball.
So it's more. It's not so much the style; it's more the quality.
Quality, absolutely. Like I'm not someone that's going to turn my nose up at a 37. Like if you watch the Louisville Salem game on Saturday, 37-36 was your final score. A lot of people be like, well, that had to be boring because it was 37-36. No, not boring basketball. High brand of basketball. Both teams play really good defense. Both teams have a lot of talent on the floor on offense. So when those teams are playing good defense when they're held 37-36, and that's just good basketball.
And that's one thing. Like I believe it really in any sport. You educate yourself. Looking at the stats and reading stories, looking at the scores, yeah. But if you don't watch the game, it's easy to just come with a certain assumption just because it's low scoring, or even let's say was a high scoring game and people are like, the
defenses were optional.
Yeah, but that's not always the case, and that's another thing that's part of the beauty of sports.
And sometimes you have a high scoring game that comes because it was sloppy, and sometimes you have a low scoring game because it was sloppy. So high scoring doesn't mean it was great basketball. That's the other misconception too. Just because it was a 75-73 game doesn't mean that both teams were playing really good basketball. It just means both teams scored a lot. They could have 5 or 6 like transition dunks because the other team made really bad passes. It could just be sloppy basketball.
Could I ask you one more question?
Go for it, buddy.
I just, in your opinion, I just want to know what team give me one girls team and one boys team.
Put me on the spot.
A team that's maybe just kind of up and down right now, or haven't played to their full potential. Give me one girls and one boys team that you think is going to start taking off, and maybe even a team that not playing well right now, but you think could surprise people.
All right, let's see, boys. I want to look at the standings before I answer that to make sure I'm right. Okay, so you look at I think one of the boys teams that you look at their record and it's like, ooh, right now, but I just can't count out Boardman. 4-7 overall, 0-2 in the conference right now, but they got a lot of talent on the team, and they're well coached. I don't count out well coached teams because I don't think they're going to hit the panic button. They're just going to go back to work, go back in the lab, and Coach Birch is going to put the best. Them in the best position to win. So I'm not counting out Boardman by a long shot. And I think they can make a run and make a good second half of the season. When I look at the girls' side, I think I mentioned them earlier too. Yeah, I'm going to stay in the same conference. I know that's kind of boring. But I'm looking at this Fitch team. They're 6-8 right now, but they had a stretch where they lost 6 in a row. They were 1-6. 5 of the last 7 games, and what they did to Howland on Monday was super impressive. They're starting to really find things out. I think they had a little, for lack of a better term, they had a come to Jesus moment in the second game at South Range, where their coaches really got on them, and they just drastically changed the lineup. Some players that were probably used to having a start didn't start in that game. And it was a wake-up call. They won that game, and some of the leadership in the locker room, was very adamant. Like, hey, if you don't like this lineup, then you don't like winning, because this is what won the game. So we have to accept what our roles are, and we have to come together as a team And I felt the senior leaders of that team and the coaching staff of that team took that moment and just used it as a complete turnaround, because now this Fitch girls team is really looking good and they're hitting the stride.
So the Fitch girls, the Boardman boys.
There's a lot of other teams. If I had the time to think about it, there's a lot of other teams I could shout out. Obviously, South Range is putting together something. They've won 3 in a row, and they beat Lowville over the weekend. On the boys' side, the girls' side, I think Girard is a team that's sitting in the third of the NE8 that can make a run. I really like what I need time to think. I would need time to think if I wanted to shout out all the there's a multiple amount of teams that are hitting strides right now that I'm impressed with. Then maybe in December it wouldn't have been my picks to be like teams that make runs in the tournament.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need a spark too, like the the Warriors coach said last night, because they were down 10-1 in that game. And he's like, I don't know what I said to him for the West Branch game. And they came on. They ended up winning by double digits. So sometimes you just need that little igniter. But thank you, Anthony. We'll
you got it,
talk
bud.
about a lot more. It was good to be back on with you after a few weeks off.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
That's why it's okay that we went a couple minutes over. We've been off for 3 weeks. We had a lot of catching up to do, Scotty.
Yeah, we did.
That's going to do it for today's episode of Running Point. We want to thank Gary Altizer and Coach Tyler Lietza for coming on and talking with us on Wrestling Wednesday. Tomorrow we'll have Kate Sully from Canfield Girls Basketball coming on at 1:30. It's going to be a fun show tomorrow. We'll recap tonight's action and preview the night on Thursday as well. Going to have a lot of fun tomorrow. Join us on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet, 1 to 2 tomorrow. Check out all the games on our network tonight. ysnlive.com/live is where you can find them if you cannot get out and support these athletes, which I think you absolutely should. Make sure to check in on the